the dynasty's daughter. The morning sun cast long shadows across the sprawling Nextech corporate campus in Palo Alto, its glass towers rising like monuments to Silicon Valley's relentless innovation. Tesla vehicles and Google shuttles fill the parking lots while workers in hoodies and designer jeans streamed toward buildings that housed some of the world's most valuable intellectual property. Among them, few commanded as much respect and fear as Robert Chen, the 52-year-old founder and CEO, whose vision had transformed a garage startup into a technology empire worth $20 billion. Inside the executive boardroom on the 40th floor, Robert commanded attention from the head of a mahogany conference table that could seat 12 of the most powerful people in tech. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his navy blazer impeccable, and his bearing unmistakably that of a man who had built an empire through intelligence, ruthlessness, and an unwavering belief in his own vision. Around him sat the titans of venture capital and technology investment, men whose approval could make or break entire industries. "The IPO roadshow begins Monday," Robert announced, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through 2 decades of building Nextech from nothing into everything. "Goldman Sachs estimates we'll open at $42 per share, which would value the company at $60 billion. Murmurs of approval rippled around the table. James Crawford, the lead investor whose early bet on Robert had made him a billionaire, leaned forward with the satisfaction of a man about to see his greatest gamble pay off spectacularly. "Congratulations, Robert. 20 years of building Nextech, and now you're about to become one of the richest men in America. Some are saying you could be worth $15 billion personally." Robert's smile was modest but confident. "We're about to become very wealthy, James. This was always a team effort." As he spoke, the boardroom door opened quietly, and Maya Rodriguez entered with a tablet in hand. At 34, she moved with the quiet confidence of someone who belonged in rooms like this, though her understated elegance and position near the wall made her seem almost invisible to the power players who shaped the future of technology. Her Latino heritage showed in features that combined intelligence with a warmth that contrasted sharply with the sterile atmosphere of corporate power. "Maya, do you have the final engineering reports?" Robert asked, his tone shifting to the business-like efficiency that had made him famous. "All systems are green," Maya replied, approaching the table with professional composure. "The quantum encryption protocols are ready for commercial deployment. Security testing shows zero vulnerability across all attack vectors." She handed him the tablet, their fingers brushing briefly in a moment of connection that neither could acknowledge in front of the board. The touch lasted a fraction of a second, but in that instant something passed between them. A shared understanding, a secret history, a connection that had nothing to do with corporate hierarchy. James Crawford's curiosity was piqued by the technical sophistication of Maya's report. "Robert, remind me, who designed the core architecture?" The technical due diligence was incredibly sophisticated. "Our engineers said they'd never seen anything like it." Robert's response was practiced, delivered with the smooth confidence that had made him a master of corporate politics. "Our engineering team has been exceptional. Maya coordinates all our technical initiatives and ensures everything runs smoothly." Maya's expression remained professionally neutral, but those who knew her well might have caught the flicker of something deeper. Disappointment, perhaps, or the resignation of someone who had grown accustomed to being overlooked despite being essential. Another board member, clearly impressed by the technical documentation, shook his head in admiration. "Well, whoever designed it is brilliant. The encryption technology is years ahead of anything else on the market. Google and Apple are going to be scrambling to catch up." Robert's chest puffed slightly with pride. Nextech has always attracted the best talent. We've created an environment where innovation thrives. Maya gathered her materials and prepared to leave, but not before Robert added, Maya, can you stay after? I'd like to go over the investor presentation one more time. After the board members filed out, congratulating Robert and promising to attend the IPO celebration, Maya and Robert were left alone in the vast boardroom. The silence stretched between them, filled with the weight of things unsaid. $15 billion, Maya said quietly, staring out at the Silicon Valley landscape below. That's what they're saying you'll be worth. Robert loosened his tie, the CEO mask slipping slightly to reveal the man beneath. We'll be worth, Maya. This belongs to both of us. Does it? Maya's voice carried a note of challenge that she rarely allowed herself in public. Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like Robert Chen is the sole genius behind Nextech. You know that's not true. You know what you mean to this company, to me. Maya turned to face him, and for a moment, the professional distance collapsed. Do I? Because in 20 years of board meetings, I've never heard you mention that your project coordinator actually designed every major system that made Nextech possible. The tension between them was palpable, years of hidden truth threatening to surface. Robert moved closer, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper. Maya, you know why we can't. Can't what? Can't tell the truth. Can't acknowledge that we built this together. Can't admit that the brilliant Robert Chen had a partner who happened to be a woman and happened to not be white. It's not about that, Robert protested, though his words lacked conviction. Isn't it? Tell me, Robert, when did you write your first line of code for the quantum encryption system? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Robert's silence was answer enough. Maya gathered her materials, her professional mask sliding back into place. Emma has a soccer championship tomorrow. I promised I'd be there. Maya, wait. But she was already walking toward the door, leaving Robert alone with his empire and his secrets. That evening, Maya sat in the bleachers at Emma's school, watching her 8-year-old daughter dominate the soccer field with the same focused intensity that had made Maya one of the most brilliant engineers of her generation. Emma had inherited her mother's determination and intelligence, evident in every strategic move she made on the field. When Emma scored the winning goal, Maya jumped to her feet, cheering louder than any other parent. Emma's face lit up as she spotted her mother in the stands, waving with the joy of a child whose hero had kept a promise. A parent sitting nearby smiled at Maya's enthusiasm. She's incredible. You must be so proud. She's my everything, Maya replied, meaning every word. I saw the news about Nextech on the Financial Channel, the parent continued. Your boss is going to be worth billions after the IPO. Must be exciting to work for a genius like that. Maya's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Robert's very visionary. As Emma celebrated with her teammates, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Robert. Emergency board call. Investors have technical questions. Need you here now. Maya looked at her daughter, still glowing with victory, then at the message that demanded she choose between her secret and her child. She typed back, Emma's championship game just ended. Give me an hour. Robert's response was immediate. This can't wait. The IPO depends on it. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the familiar weight of sacrifice that had defined their relationship for over a decade. She walked down to the field where Emma was showing off her trophy to friends. Mom, did you see my goal? Coach says I'm the best striker they've ever had. Maya knelt down to Emma's level, her heart breaking a little. I saw everything, sweetheart. You were amazing. Can we get ice cream to celebrate? Maya struggled with the words. Mommy has to go back to work for a little while, but we'll celebrate this weekend, okay? Emma's face fell slightly, but she nodded with the understanding of a child who had learned that Mommy's work was very important and very secret. An hour later, Maya was back in the Nextech boardroom, facing a room full of anxious board members and investors, connected via video conference. Robert stood at the head of the table, but all eyes turned to Maya as she set up her laptop. The institutional investors are asking detailed questions about the core technology, James Crawford explained. They want to understand exactly how it works and whether it's truly defensible. Robert gestured to Maya. Maya can walk you through the encryption architecture. Maya opened her presentation and complex diagrams filled the large monitor. The quantum encryption system uses entangled photons to create unbreakable communication channels, she began, her voice clear and confident. The beauty is in the mathematical impossibility of interception without detection. For the next 30 minutes, Maya fielded increasingly sophisticated technical questions from some of the world's leading technology investors. Her explanations were precise, elegant, and revealed a depth of understanding that impressed even the most skeptical voices on the call. When the call ended, James Crawford was effusive in his praise. Robert, whoever designed this system, is operating on a level that most engineers never reach. You're sitting on the most valuable intellectual property in cybersecurity. Robert accepted the compliments with practiced grace, but Maya noticed he never corrected the assumption about who had created the technology. As the board members filed out, she began packing her laptop with mechanical precision. Maya, Robert said when they were alone, don't. Her voice was quiet but firm. Just don't. You were brilliant in there. You always are. I know. She turned to face him. The question is, do you? That night, in her modest apartment in Mountain View, Maya helped Emma with homework at the kitchen table. The contrast between her simple home and the luxury that surrounded Robert was stark, but it was here that Maya felt most herself. Mom, what do you do at work? Emma asked, looking up from her math problems. Maya paused, considering how to explain a life built on hidden genius. I help solve very complicated problems. Are you important? The question pierced Maya's heart. I help make things work. But are you important? Like, do people know you're smart? Maya looked at her daughter's earnest face and made a decision. Do you think I'm important? Emma's response was immediate and fierce. You're the smartest person in the whole world, and you're my mom, so you're the most important person ever. For a moment, that was enough. The next morning brought crisis in the form of a Wall Street Journal article that sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley. Maya read it on her phone while drinking coffee, her blood running cold with each paragraph. Nextech IPO in jeopardy as competitor claims patent infringement, read the headline. The article detailed how Cyberdyne Technologies, a rival firm, was claiming that Nextech's quantum encryption technology violated patents they had filed 3 years earlier. Maya's phone rang immediately. Robert's voice was tense. Emergency board meeting. Now. The boardroom was in chaos when Maya arrived. Board members shouted over each other while Robert tried to maintain control. Legal documents covered the table, and multiple laptops displayed news coverage of the developing crisis. This is a disaster, James Crawford was saying. If Cyberdyne can prove patent infringement, the IPO is dead. We're talking about billions in losses. Robert's usual composure was cracking. Their claims are baseless. Our technology is completely original. Can you prove that? Asked the General Counsel. Do we have documentation of independent development? The room fell silent. Maya felt all eyes turned to her, though she hadn't spoken. Maya, Robert said carefully, you coordinate our technical documentation. What records do we have of the encryption system's development? Maya looked around the room at the faces of men who controlled billions of dollars but understood nothing about the technology that would make them rich. Her choice in this moment would determine not just the fate of the IPO, but the truth about who had really built Nextech. "The development records are comprehensive," she said slowly. "Every line of code, every design decision, every breakthrough is documented." Relief flooded Robert's face. "There, you see. We have complete documentation." "The question," Maya continued, her voice growing stronger, "is whether the board wants to see those records." Something in her tone made the room go quiet. James Crawford leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Maya opened her laptop and connected it to the main display. Lines of code appeared on screen, along with timestamps, comments, and design notes. "This is the original development history of Nextech's quantum encryption system." She scrolled through months of work, every entry time-stamped and attributed. The pattern was clear. The foundational work, the breakthrough insights, the elegant solutions that had made Nextech possible, all of it was attributed to Monsieur Rodriguez. "I don't understand," James said, though his expression suggested he was beginning to. "Maya Rodriguez," Maya said, standing up and facing the room with her full authority for the first time in her career. "Not Monsieur Rodriguez. Maya Rodriguez designed, coded, and perfected every major system that made Nextech valuable." The silence in the room was deafening. Robert's face had gone pale. "Robert," James Crawford said slowly, "what is she saying?" Maya answered before Robert could speak. "I'm saying that the genius behind Nextech isn't Robert Chen. It's me. I wrote the code. I solved the problems. I created the breakthroughs that you're about to take public for $60 billion. The revelation hit the room like a physical force. Board members looked between Maya and Robert, trying to process what they were hearing. "That's impossible," one member said. "Robert founded the company. He's been the public face of every innovation." "The public face, yes," Maya replied, "but not the brain behind it." Robert finally found his voice. "Maya, you're upset about the patent issue, but you can't just—" "I can't what?" "Tell the truth." Maya's composure was cracking, years of suppressed truth finally breaking free. "I can't reveal that the great Robert Chen needed a brilliant engineer to actually build what he dreamed." She clicked to another screen, showing patent applications and technical papers. Every patent filed by Nextech lists R. Chen as the inventor, but the original work, the proof of concept, the actual innovation, all of it came from me. James Crawford was staring at the documentation, his financial instincts recognizing the implications. If this is true, then Maya, not Robert, would be considered the original inventor. That could invalidate Cyberdyne's claims. "It could do more than that," Maya said quietly. "It could change everything about who owns what at Nextech." The room erupted in voices as board members grasped the legal and financial implications. In the chaos, Robert approached Maya with desperation in his eyes. "Maya, please, think about what you're doing. Think about Emma." The mention of her daughter stopped Maya cold. "What about Emma? This will destroy everything we've built. Your job, your security, Emma's future." "My job?" Maya's voice rose. "Robert, I don't have a job. I have been your secret partner for over a decade, building your empire while you take credit for my work." "That's not how it is." "Then how is it?" Maya challenged. "Explain to this room how the woman who designed everything valuable about Nextech became your project coordinator." Robert's silence was damning. James Crawford, meanwhile, was furiously typing on his phone, already calculating the financial implications. "Maya," James said, his voice taking on the careful tone of someone negotiating a deal worth billions, "what exactly are you proposing?" Maya looked around the room at the faces of men who had never seen her as anything more than Robert's efficient assistant. For the first time in her career, she had their complete attention. "I'm proposing that we tell the truth to the SEC, to the investors, to the world. Maya Rodriguez is the co-founder and technical genius behind Nextech. She deserves recognition, equity, and her rightful place in the company she built." "And if we don't?" Robert asked, though he already knew the answer. Maya's smile was sharp. "Then I file a lawsuit tomorrow morning claiming ownership of every patent, every innovation, and every line of code that makes Nextech valuable. The IPO doesn't just get delayed, it gets destroyed." The ultimatum hung in the air like a sword. James Crawford was the first to speak. "Robert, we need to understand the full scope of Maya's contributions, if she can prove what she's claiming." "I can prove everything," Maya said firmly. "Code repositories, email chains, design documents, Git commits. I have documentation going back 15 years. 15 years, James repeated. "Robert, you said you founded Nextech 12 years ago." Maya turned to Robert with a look that held years of accumulated pain. "Tell them about the garage, Robert. Tell them about the nights we spent writing code while I was pregnant with Emma. Tell them who solved the quantum entanglement problem that every other company said was impossible." Robert's facade finally crumbled. "Maya, we were partners. We built this together." "Partners?" Maya's voice cracked with emotion. "Partners share credit. Partners share equity. Partners don't spend 12 years pretending one of them doesn't exist." The weight of the revelation was sinking in throughout the room. These were sophisticated investors who could calculate the implications instantly. If Maya could prove her claims, she didn't just deserve recognition, she deserved billions. James Crawford was already in damage control mode. "Maya, what would it take to resolve this situation in a way that allows the IPO to proceed?" Maya had been waiting for this question for 12 years. "I want 50% equity in Nextech. I want to be named co-founder and CTO. I want my name on every patent I created. And I want Robert to publicly acknowledge my role in building this company." 50%. Robert's voice was barely a whisper. "I did 50% of the work, Robert. Actually, I did more than 50%. You handled business development and fundraising. I handled everything that actually made the company valuable." James Crawford was already running numbers. "Maya, 50% of $60 billion. Is $30 billion? Yes, I can do math." The figure hung in the air like a revelation. Maya Rodriguez, the quiet project coordinator, was demanding to be recognized as one of the richest women in the world. "This is insane," Robert said, but his protest lacked conviction. "What's insane," Maya replied, "is that I spent 12 years building your fortune while raising my daughter alone and living in a one-bedroom apartment." James Crawford made a decision. "We need to see the documentation, all of it. If Maya can prove her claims, we need to restructure the entire deal." "I'll have everything ready by tomorrow morning," Maya said. As the board members filed out in stunned silence, Robert and Maya were left alone once again. But this time the dynamic had shifted fundamentally. "Maya, I never meant for it to happen this way." "How did you mean for it to happen, Robert? At what point were you going to give me credit for my own work?" Robert slumped in his chair, looking older than his 52 years. "I was scared. You're brilliant in a way that makes everyone else look stupid. I thought if investors knew the real genius behind Nextech was a Latina woman." "They wouldn't fund us," Maya finished. "So you decided to be the face of my intelligence." "I thought I was protecting us. Protecting the company." "You were protecting yourself." Maya's voice was firm but not cruel. And I enabled it because I thought the work mattered more than the credit. Doesn't it? Maya thought about Emma, about the years of hiding her true contributions, about the life she could have given her daughter if she had been valued properly. The work matters, but so do the people who do it. That night, Maya sat in her apartment organizing 12 years of documentation, email chains showing her breakthrough insights, code repositories with her commits, design documents with her digital signature, the paper trail of genius that had been hidden in plain sight. Emma found her at the kitchen table surrounded by laptops and papers. "Mom, are you okay? You look different." Maya looked up at her daughter, seeing her own reflection in Emma's intelligent eyes. "I think I'm about to become very important at work." "Really? Are people going to know how smart you are?" "Yes, sweetheart. People are going to know." Emma grinned. "Good. It's about time." The next morning's board meeting was unlike anything in Nextech's history. Maya arrived with printed documentation, flash drives, and a presentation that detailed her contributions to every major Nextech innovation. She had also brought something else: confidence. For the first time since joining the company, Maya took a seat at the conference table rather than standing against the wall. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone in the room. "Before we begin," James Crawford announced, "I want everyone to understand the gravity of this situation. If Maya's claims are validated, we're not just looking at restructuring equity. We're looking at rewriting the entire story of Nextech." Maya opened her presentation. "I'm going to walk you through 15 years of innovation, from conception to implementation. By the end, you'll understand exactly who built this company." What followed was a masterclass in technical innovation told by the person who had actually done the work. Maya showed the original algorithms she had developed in graduate school, the breakthrough insights that had solved previously impossible problems, and the elegant architecture that had made Nextech's systems unbreakable. "This is the quantum entanglement protocol that makes our encryption unbreakable," Maya explained, displaying code on the screen. "I wrote this in 2018 after 3 years of research. The approach was considered impossible by every other company in the industry." She clicked to the next slide. "This is the scalability solution that allows our systems to handle millions of users simultaneously. I developed this algorithm after identifying bottlenecks that Robert didn't even know existed." Board member after board member asked technical questions, and Maya answered each with the detailed knowledge of someone who had lived and breathed every aspect of the technology. Robert sat silent, his own lack of deep technical understanding becoming painfully obvious. James Crawford finally asked the question everyone was thinking. "Maya, if you're the technical genius behind Nextech, what exactly was Robert's role?" Maya looked at Robert before answering. Robert was essential in the early days. He had the vision to see what the technology could become. He secured funding, built partnerships, and created the business framework that allowed the technology to reach the market. But the actual innovation came from me. The admission hung in the room like a judgment. James Crawford was already calculating the implications. "Maya, your claims are extraordinary, but the documentation is compelling. However, I need to ask, why now? Why reveal this just before the IPO?" Maya's answer was simple and devastating. "Because I realized that my daughter was growing up, thinking her mother was just someone's assistant, and I decided that was unacceptable." The emotional truth of the statement resonated even with the hardened financiers in the room. These were men who understood ambition, but Maya's motivation was something deeper, the desire to be seen and valued for who she really was. James Crawford made his decision. "I'm recommending that the board approve Maya's request for 50% equity and recognition as co-founder. The alternative is a legal battle that could destroy the IPO and expose the company to massive liability." "Wait," Robert said, speaking for the first time in an hour. "There has to be another way." Maya turned to him with a mixture of sadness and determination. "Robert, there is another way. You could have given me credit years ago. You could have made me your equal partner instead of your secret weapon. But that ship has sailed." Over the next hour, the board hammered out the details of what would become one of the most dramatic corporate restructuring deals in Silicon Valley history. Maya would receive 50% equity in Nextech, making her one of the richest women in the world overnight. She would be named co-founder and chief technology officer, with her name added to every patent she had created. Most importantly, the company would publicly acknowledge her role in building Nextech. When the meeting ended, Maya and Robert walked out together for what they both knew might be the last time as their old selves. "I don't know how to do this," Robert admitted. "I've been Robert Chen, the genius founder, for so long." "Maybe it's time to be Robert Chen, the brilliant business mind who recognized genius and built a company around it," Maya suggested. "That's not a small thing, Robert. You just can't be the only thing." "And us? What happens to us?" Maya considered the question that had no easy answer. "I don't know. We've been living a lie for 12 years. Maybe it's time to figure out what the truth looks like." 2 weeks later, the technology world was stunned by an announcement that reframed everything they thought they knew about Nextech. In a joint press conference, Robert Chen and Maya Rodriguez stood side by side as they revealed the true story of their partnership. "I want to set the record straight," Robert began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was revealing. "For 12 years, I have been given credit for innovations that were actually created by my partner, Maya Rodriguez. She is the technical genius behind Nextech, and it's time the world knew that." Maya stepped forward, taking her place in the spotlight for the first time in her career. "Robert and I built Nextech together. He provided the vision and business acumen. I provided the technical innovation. It's time to tell the complete story." The announcement sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley and beyond. Tech journalists scrambled to understand how one of the industry's most celebrated founders had been sharing credit with a hidden partner. Feminist organizations hailed Maya as a groundbreaking example of women's contributions to technology being finally recognized. Business analysts calculated that Maya's revelation had made her one of the 5 richest women in America overnight. The IPO, far from being damaged by the revelation, became one of the most successful in tech history. Investors were fascinated by the story of hidden genius finally revealed, and the stock opened at $58 per share, valuing Nextech at over $70 billion. Maya's $35 billion stake made her richer than most countries' GDP, but perhaps the most meaningful moment came 3 months later at the annual Women in Tech conference in San Francisco. Maya took the stage as the keynote speaker, wearing a tailored black suit that conveyed both power and authenticity. In the audience sat hundreds of women engineers, entrepreneurs, and innovators who had struggled for recognition in an industry dominated by men. "My name is Maya Rodriguez," she began, her voice carrying across the silent auditorium. "Until 4 months ago, most of you had never heard of me. I was the woman behind the man behind one of the most valuable technology companies in the world." She paused, looking out at faces that reflected her own journey. "I'm not here to tell you that hiding your brilliance is noble. I'm not here to say that waiting for recognition is virtuous. I'm here to tell you that your genius belongs to you, and you have the right to claim it." The audience erupted in applause, but Maya continued. "For 12 years, I told myself that the work was more important than the credit, that building something revolutionary mattered more than being recognized for building it. And the work did matter, but I was wrong about the credit." She clicked to a slide showing a photo of Emma at her soccer championship. "This is my daughter, Emma. For 8 years, she watched her mother disappear into work that seemed to make other people famous. She's brilliant and she's ambitious, and she deserves to grow up in a world where brilliant, ambitious women get the recognition they've earned. The applause was thunderous now, but Maya had one more point to make. I'm not here to vilify Robert Chen. He's a brilliant businessman who built an empire around innovations he understood were revolutionary, even if he didn't create them himself. Our story isn't just about one woman claiming her due. It's about what becomes possible when we tell the complete truth about who builds the future. After her speech, Maya was surrounded by young women engineers eager to share their own stories of hidden contributions and overlooked innovations. But the conversation that mattered most came later, in a quiet moment backstage. Emma, now 9 and fully aware of her mother's transformation, tugged on Maya's jacket. "Mom, are you happy?" Maya knelt down to her daughter's level, thinking about the question that contained multitudes. "I'm proud," Maya said finally. "For the first time in a very long time, I'm proud of who I am and what I've accomplished." "Good," Emma said with the matter-of-fact wisdom of childhood. "You should be proud. You're the smartest person I know, and now everyone else knows it too." 6 months after the revelation, Maya stood in her new office on the top floor of Nextech Tower. The space was a monument to her achievements, walls lined with patents bearing her name, awards recognizing her innovations, and photographs of her speaking at conferences around the world. But the item she treasured most was a simple crayon drawing from Emma, showing 2 stick figures labeled Mom and Me, standing next to a building labeled Maya's Company. Robert knocked on her door, looking older but somehow more genuine than he had in years. Their partnership had evolved into something more honest, if more complicated. "The quantum computing project is ahead of schedule," he reported. "Your new encryption protocols are testing perfectly." "Our protocols," Maya corrected gently. "You developed the commercial applications framework." Robert smiled. "Still getting used to sharing credit. It gets easier." They stood together, looking out at the Silicon Valley landscape, 2 people who had learned that the truth, however delayed, had the power to transform everything. "Any regrets?" Robert asked. Maya considered the question that she had asked herself many times over the past months. "I regret waiting so long. I regret the years Emma spent thinking her mother was just someone's assistant. I regret not believing in my own worth sooner." "But not the work we did together?" "Never the work. We built something revolutionary, Robert. We just needed to be honest about how we built it." That evening, Maya picked up Emma from school in her new Tesla, a small symbol of the financial freedom that had accompanied her recognition. But the real change was in how she carried herself, the confidence of someone who no longer had to hide her brilliance. "Mom," Emma said as they drove toward their new house in the hills overlooking the valley, "my teacher wants to know if you'll come speak to our class about being an inventor." Maya smiled, remembering a time when such a request would have been impossible because officially she hadn't invented anything. "I'd love to. What should I tell them?" Emma considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important questions. "Tell them that being smart isn't enough. You have to be brave too." Maya looked at her daughter with wonder, recognizing the wisdom that came from watching her mother's transformation. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the smartest person I know," Emma replied with a grin. As they drove up into the hills where the lights of Silicon Valley spread out below them like a circuit board, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her from hidden genius to recognized revolutionary. The road had been longer and more difficult than it should have been, but it had led to something unprecedented, a future where her daughter would grow up knowing that brilliance deserved recognition, that innovation belonged to its creator, and that the most important code she could ever write was the one that defined her own worth. In the end, Maya had learned that building an empire was impressive, but claiming credit for building it was revolutionary. The dynasty she had created wasn't just measured in dollars or patents or market valuation. It was measured in the example she had set for every brilliant woman who refused to remain invisible. Maya Rodriguez, the daughter of immigrants who had become one of the most powerful women in technology, had finally written her own name into the history she had helped create. And for the first time in her life, that felt like enough. But it was only the beginning. With her newfound platform and resources, Maya began investing in women-led startups, funding scholarships for underrepresented students in engineering, and mentoring the next generation of innovators who would never have to choose between recognition and success. The dynasty she had built in secret was now a legacy she could share openly, and Emma would inherit not just wealth, but the knowledge that genius, when finally acknowledged, had the power to change the world. 1 year after her revelation, Maya stood once again on a stage, this time at the White House, receiving the National Medal of Technology and Innovation. As she accepted the award from the president, she thought about the garage where it had all started, the nights spent coding while pregnant, and the years of watching other people take credit for her brilliance. Maya Rodriguez, the president announced, has revolutionized cybersecurity and quantum computing through innovations that have made our digital world safer and more connected. Her courage in claiming recognition for her contributions has also opened doors for countless other innovators who deserve to be seen and celebrated. In the audience, Emma beamed with pride as she watched her mother receive the recognition that had been decades in the making. Next to her sat Robert, applauding with genuine admiration for the woman who had taught him that true partnership meant sharing both the work and the glory. As Maya stepped to the microphone to accept the medal, she thought about all the women and underrepresented innovators who were watching, seeing themselves reflected in her journey from invisible contributor to celebrated genius. "This medal doesn't just recognize my innovations," Maya said, her voice carrying across the East Room. "It recognizes the importance of telling complete stories about who builds the future. It recognizes that genius comes in many forms, from many backgrounds, and deserves to be celebrated wherever it's found." She paused, thinking about the young girl who had dreamed of changing the world through technology, never imagining that her greatest innovation would be learning to value herself. To every innovator who has been overlooked, undercredited, or told that their contributions don't matter, this medal is for you. Your genius belongs to you. Claim it. The applause was thunderous, but Maya's attention was focused on Emma's face, shining with the knowledge that her mother had not just changed technology, but had changed what was possible for brilliant women everywhere. Later that evening, as Maya and Emma walked through the White House gardens, Emma asked the question that had been on her mind all day. "Mom, what's next?" Maya looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the Washington sky, thinking about quantum encryption and artificial intelligence and all the innovations yet to be discovered. "Whatever we want, sweetheart. Whatever we want." And for the first time in her life, Maya truly believed it. The months following Maya's White House recognition brought a whirlwind of changes that transformed not just her life, but the entire landscape of Silicon Valley. The story of the hidden genius behind Nextech had captured the world's imagination, inspiring documentaries, business school case studies, and countless articles about the unseen contributors to technological innovation. But perhaps the most significant change was happening within Nextech itself. Maya's new role as co-founder and chief technology officer had fundamentally altered the company's culture. Where once there had been a hierarchical structure centered around Robert's vision, there was now a more collaborative environment that valued technical expertise alongside business acumen. Maya's first major initiative as CTO was to implement what she called innovation transparency, a system that tracked and publicly credited every engineer's contributions to the company's patents and breakthroughs. No longer would brilliant work disappear into the corporate machine without recognition. Every innovation has an author, Maya announced at her first company-wide meeting as CTO, and every author deserves to be known. The initiative was met with enthusiasm from the engineering teams and some resistance from management, who worried about disrupting established hierarchies. But Maya's influence was now unassailable. She was, after all, worth $35 billion and had proven herself to be the technical brain behind the company's success. Jennifer Wu, the young developer Maya had mentored, approached her after the meeting with barely contained excitement. "Maya, this changes everything. I've been working on quantum error correction for 2 years, but my manager keeps taking credit for my breakthroughs." Maya smiled, remembering her own years of invisible contributions. "Not anymore. From now on, your work gets your name on it." The changes weren't limited to Nextech. Maya had begun using her newfound wealth and platform to address the systemic issues that had kept her hidden for so long. She established the Rodriguez Foundation for Hidden Genius, which provided funding and mentorship for underrepresented innovators whose contributions had been overlooked or undervalued. The Foundation's first major initiative was the True Innovation Awards, which specifically sought to identify and celebrate the uncredited contributors to major technological breakthroughs. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of engineers, researchers, and inventors came forward with stories of their own hidden contributions to famous innovations. Dr. Sarah Kim, a Korean-American researcher whose machine learning algorithms had powered 3 major tech companies without attribution, was the Foundation's first award recipient. At the ceremony, she broke down in tears as Maya presented her with not just recognition, but a $2 million grant to pursue her own startup. "For 15 years, I thought my work didn't matter because no one knew my name was on it," Dr. Kim said through her tears. Maya Rodriguez didn't just find her voice, she helped the rest of us find ours. But Maya's transformation wasn't without its complications. Her relationship with Robert had evolved into something more complex than either had anticipated. They were still partners, but the power dynamic had shifted fundamentally. Robert, once the undisputed leader of Nextech, now found himself sharing not just credit, but authority with someone whose technical expertise far exceeded his own. The tension came to a head during a board meeting 6 months after Maya's revelation. The company was developing new artificial intelligence capabilities, and a disagreement had emerged about the direction of the technology. Robert argued, presenting slides about smart home devices and personal assistants. "We should focus on products that can reach millions of users." Maya listened patiently, then presented her counter-argument. "The real breakthrough is in enterprise security applications. Consumer AI is crowded, but we can revolutionize how corporations protect sensitive data." The board members looked between the 2 co-founders, unsure how to navigate this new dynamic. In the past, Robert's word would have been final. Now they had to weigh business instincts against technical expertise. James Crawford, ever the pragmatist, cut to the heart of the matter. "Maya, from a technical standpoint, which direction offers the most innovation potential?" "Enterprise security," Maya replied without hesitation. "The consumer market is about incremental improvements to existing technology. Enterprise security is about solving problems that currently have no solutions." "And Robert, from a business standpoint?" Robert hesitated, recognizing that he was being forced to argue against technical innovation, something that would have been unthinkable in the old dynamic. "Consumer products offer faster market penetration and revenue growth," he said, but his conviction seemed shaken. The board voted to pursue Maya's enterprise security vision, marking the first time in Nextech's history that technical considerations had explicitly overruled business strategy. It was a symbolic moment that highlighted how fundamentally the company had changed. After the meeting, Robert approached Maya in her office. The space itself was a symbol of her transformation, larger than his own, filled with cutting-edge technology, and decorated with awards that bore her name. "This is harder than I thought it would be," Robert admitted, settling into a chair across from her desk. "What is sharing leadership? For 12 years I was the final authority on everything. Now, ... Now you have a partner who actually understands the technology," Maya finished gently. Robert nodded. "I know it's better for the company. I know it's more honest. But it's an adjustment." Maya studied the man who had been both her closest collaborator and her greatest obstacle. "Robert, do you remember why you started Nextech? To change the world through technology. Are we doing that?" "More than ever." "Then what we're doing is working." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock on Maya's door. Emma, now 10 years old and increasingly sophisticated in her understanding of her mother's work, entered with her school backpack. "Hi, Mom. Hi, Mr. Chen." Robert smiled at the girl who had become a fixture at Nextech offices. "Hello, Emma. How was school?" "We're doing a project on famous inventors. I'm doing mine on Mom." Maya felt a familiar surge of pride mixed with amazement. The idea that her daughter could choose her as a famous inventor would have been impossible just 2 years earlier. "What are you focusing on?" Robert asked with genuine interest. "The quantum encryption breakthrough," Emma replied matter-of-factly. "My teacher says it changed cybersecurity forever." Robert looked at Maya with an expression that mixed admiration and something like regret. "Your daughter understands your work better than most of our board members." "She's always been my best audience," Maya replied, pulling Emma into a side hug. As Robert left, Emma settled at the small desk Maya had installed in her office for after-school homework sessions. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Were you scared when you told everyone the truth about Nextech?" Maya considered the question, remembering the terror and exhilaration of that moment in the boardroom. "Terrified." "But you did it anyway." "Yes." "Why?" Maya looked at her daughter, seeing her own curiosity and determination reflected in Emma's intelligent eyes. "Because I realized that hiding who I really wasn't protecting anyone. It was just making me smaller." Emma nodded with the seriousness she brought to important topics. "I'm glad you decided to be big." The simplicity of the statement hit Maya with unexpected force. She had spent so many years thinking about equity and recognition and justice, but Emma had distilled it down to its essence, the choice between being small and being big. That weekend, Maya and Emma attended the opening of the Rodriguez Center for Innovation at Stanford University, a $50 million facility that Maya had funded to support interdisciplinary research by underrepresented students. The center was Maya's way of ensuring that the next generation of innovators would have resources and recognition from the beginning of their careers. The opening ceremony was attended by hundreds of students, faculty, and tech industry leaders. As Maya cut the ribbon, she was struck by the diversity of faces in the crowd. Women, people of color, first-generation college students, all of whom saw in her story a possibility for their own recognition and success. Dr. Maria Santos, the center's director and a former MIT researcher whose contributions to renewable energy had been overshadowed by her male colleagues, spoke about the significance of the moment. "The Rodriguez Center represents more than funding," Dr. Santos said. "It represents a commitment to ensuring that innovation is credited to its true creators, regardless of their background or position in existing power structures." After the ceremony, Maya was approached by a young woman named Priya Patel, a Stanford PhD student in computer science. "Ms. Rodriguez, I wanted to thank you," Priya said, her voice shaking with emotion. "I've been working on blockchain security protocols, but my advisor keeps presenting my work as his own research. Your story gave me the courage to speak up." Maya felt the familiar surge of recognition, the pattern that had defined her own early career. "What happened when you spoke up?" He backed down. "Turns out, when you know someone else has successfully challenged this kind of behavior, it's easier to find your own voice." These encounters happened regularly now. Maya had become a symbol of hidden genius, finally recognized, and her story had emboldened countless others to claim credit for their own contributions. The Maya Rodriguez effect, as business journalists had dubbed it, was reshaping how Silicon Valley thought about attribution and recognition. But the most meaningful validation came from an unexpected source. 3 months after the Stanford Center opened, Maya received a call from Dr. Elena Vasquez, a retired NASA engineer who had worked on the early space program. "Miss Rodriguez, I'm 87 years old and I've been following your story in the news," Dr. Vasquez said during their phone conversation. "I wanted you to know that you're not alone in this experience." "What do you mean?" "I spent 30 years at NASA designing navigation systems that got us to the moon, but because I was a woman and a Latina in the 1960s, my contributions were never officially recognized. The white male engineers got the credit and the promotions." Maya felt a chill of recognition. "Did you ever speak up?" "I tried, but it was different then. There was no mechanism for challenging the system. I retired in obscurity, and my granddaughter only learned about my real contributions when she researched our family history." The conversation continued for over an hour, with Dr. Vasquez sharing stories of hidden contributions and overlooked innovations. By the end, Maya had offered to fund a documentary about Dr. Vasquez's work, ensuring that her story would finally be told. "Why are you doing this for me?" Dr. Vasquez asked. "Because every story that gets told makes it easier for the next person to tell theirs," Maya replied. The documentary, Hidden Figures of the Space Race, premiered 6 months later and won an Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature. At the ceremony, Maya sat next to Dr. Vasquez, as the 88-year-old engineer, finally received recognition for helping humanity reach the stars. This is for every woman whose brilliance was hidden, whose contributions were uncredited, whose genius was invisible, Dr. Vasquez said in her acceptance speech. Maya Rodriguez showed us it's never too late to claim our place in history. The ripple effects of Maya's revelation continued to spread throughout the tech industry and beyond. Major companies began implementing transparency initiatives to ensure proper attribution for innovations. The Rodriguez Protocols, as they became known, required clear documentation of individual contributions to patents and breakthroughs. Some companies resisted, arguing that innovation was inherently collaborative and that individual attribution was unnecessary. But the market had spoken. Companies with transparent attribution practices were attracting better talent and generating more innovative solutions. Maya found herself testifying before Congress about intellectual property reform, speaking at the World Economic Forum about inclusive innovation, and serving on the boards of major tech companies as an advocate for equitable recognition practices. But perhaps her most important role was as a mother to Emma, who was growing up with a radically different understanding of what was possible for brilliant women. Emma's school projects increasingly focused on underrepresented innovators, and she had started a coding club specifically for girls who wanted to pursue careers in technology. "Mom, I want to be an inventor like you," Emma announced one evening as they worked together on a robotics project. "What do you want to invent?" Maya asked. I want to invent a way to make sure no one ever has to hide their genius again. Maya looked at her daughter with wonder, recognizing that Emma was growing up in a world where such an invention might actually be possible. 2 years after her revelation, Maya was invited to deliver the commencement address at MIT, her alma mater. Standing before thousands of graduating engineers, computer scientists, and innovators, she reflected on the journey that had brought her from invisible contributor to recognized revolutionary. When I started my career, I believed that good work would speak for itself, Maya began, her voice carrying across the silent auditorium. I thought that if I just made the technology good enough, smart enough, revolutionary enough, recognition would follow naturally. She paused, looking out at the faces of young people about to enter industries that still struggled with attribution and recognition. I was wrong. Good work doesn't speak for itself. We have to speak for our work. Genius doesn't announce itself. We have to announce our genius. Innovation doesn't credit itself. We have to claim credit for our innovations. The applause was building, but Maya had more to say. But claiming credit isn't just about individual recognition. It's about changing the systems that determine whose contributions are valued and whose are invisible. It's about creating a world where the next generation of innovators never has to choose between being seen and being successful. She clicked to her final slide, showing a photo of Emma at her robotics competition, holding a trophy and beaming with pride. This is my daughter, Emma. She's 12 years old and she wants to be an inventor. But unlike her mother, she'll grow up knowing that her innovations belong to her, that her genius is valuable, and that her contributions will be recognized. Maya looked out at the graduating class, seeing her own younger self reflected in their hopeful faces. That's the world I want to build with you. A world where hidden genius becomes visible genius, where every innovator gets credit for their contributions, and where the most revolutionary technology of all is the system that ensures everyone's brilliance is seen and celebrated. The standing ovation lasted for several minutes, but Maya's attention was focused on Emma, sitting in the front row and applauding with tears of pride streaming down her face. After the ceremony, as Maya and Emma walked across the MIT campus where it had all begun, Emma asked the question that had been on her mind throughout the speech. "Mom, do you think the world will really change?" Maya looked around at the buildings where she had first learned to code, where she had developed the algorithms that would eventually power Next Tech, where she had dreamed of changing the world through technology. "It already has, sweetheart. The question is whether we'll keep changing it." As they walked, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Robert. "Watched your speech online. Brilliant as always. The Q3 results are in. Enterprise security revenue up 400%. You were right, as usual." Maya smiled, thinking about how their relationship had evolved from hidden partnership to honest collaboration. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. That evening, as Maya tucked Emma into bed in their house overlooking Silicon Valley, Emma asked one final question. "Mom, what's the most important thing you ever invented?" Maya thought about quantum encryption and enterprise security and all the technology that had made her famous and wealthy. But the answer was simple. "The courage to tell the truth about who I really am." Emma nodded solemnly. "That's a good invention." As Maya turned off the lights and closed Emma's door, she reflected on the journey that had transformed her from invisible genius to recognized innovator. The road had been longer and more difficult than it should have been, but it had led to something unprecedented, a future where brilliant women could claim their contributions from the beginning rather than fighting for recognition after decades of invisibility. Looking out at the lights of Silicon Valley, Maya thought about all the hidden geniuses still waiting for their moment of revelation. Her story had shown that it was possible to emerge from the shadows, but there was still work to be done. The next morning, Maya opened her laptop and began writing code for her newest project, an open-source platform that would automatically track and credit individual contributions to collaborative innovations. She called it Visible Genius, and she intended to give it away for free to any organization committed to transparent attribution. As she wrote the first lines of code, Maya smiled, thinking about the young engineers who would never have to fight for recognition because the systems themselves would ensure their contributions were visible from the start. Emma wandered into the kitchen, still in her pajamas, and looked over her mother's shoulder at the screen filled with elegant algorithms. "What are you building now, Mom?" "The future," Maya replied, continuing to code. "I'm building the future." And for the first time in her life, Maya knew exactly what that future looked like. A world where genius was never hidden, where innovation was always credited to its true creators, and where brilliant minds like Emma's would never have to choose between being seen and being successful. The dynasty Maya had built wasn't just measured in dollars or patents or market valuation. It was measured in the example she had set, the systems she had changed, and the doors she had opened for everyone who came after her. Maya Rodriguez, the hidden genius who had finally claimed her place in history, was just getting started.